Pregnant, by the sterile millionaire. He says, "You're nothing but a gold digger, but the impossible." Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive right into today's story. Imagine a world where the unexpected is always just around the corner, waiting to change everything you thought you knew about love, life, and the choices you make. Our story today takes us to a moment of uncertainty and a chance encounter that will alter the course of a woman's life forever. Meet Emma Brooks, a young woman trying to make it in New York City, holding onto the threads of her dreams despite the odds stacked against her. Emma had never been one to play games or try to impress people with flashy appearances. She didn't have the luxury of designer dresses or expensive shoes. She was a waitress with big dreams, but small means. But tonight, everything was different. Tonight, she was going to meet someone new, a blind date set up by her best friend, Jenny. Emma was nervous. This wasn't her scene. The glitzy, polished world of high-end restaurants, people in suits, and polished shoes. It was foreign to her. As she stood in front of the restaurant, her second-hand dress and scuffed shoes seemed to scream out that she didn't belong. But she had promised Jenny, and she wasn't about to back out. "Table 7, she muttered under her breath as she scanned the room. Her heart was racing, palms sweaty. She walked over to a lone man sitting at the back, his back turned as he stared at his phone. He was sharply dressed, his dark hair neatly styled, his suit a perfect fit. This had to be him. Taking a deep breath, she walked over to him and put on her best smile. "Hi, you must be Kevin. I'm Emma. Nice to meet you." The man looked up, his eyes widening with confusion. He blinked a few times, clearly taken aback. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Hi, Emma," he finally said, clearly caught off guard by her sudden appearance. Emma laughed nervously, sitting down across from him. "Oh, I know this is awkward. Blind dates are weird, right?" she said, trying to fill the silence. "Jenny told me you might be a little shy, so don't worry. I can talk enough for both of us." The man hesitated, clearly unsure whether to correct her, but for some reason, he didn't. Instead, he gave a small smile, almost as if he was amused by her nervousness. "Right, blind dates are something else." Emma relaxed a little, feeling the weight of her nerves lifting. She took a sip of her water and continued. "Tell me about you. What do you do?" The man shifted slightly in his seat, his eyes never quite meeting hers. "I work in tech," he said. "Tech? That's cool," Emma said with a smile, trying to keep the conversation flowing. "Coding and apps and stuff? I'm terrible with computers, though." The man chuckled softly. "Something like that." He leaned back in his chair, studying her now. There was something about her that made him pause. She wasn't like the women he was used to, polished, perfect, and always with an agenda. She seemed real, genuine. Emma, on the other hand, couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. She had made a fool of herself already. She was certain she had sat at the wrong table. She had to fix this. "Wait," she said suddenly, pulling out her phone and glancing at the message Jenny had just sent. "Oh my God," she muttered under her breath. "You're not Kevin, are you?" Her face turned bright red. The man looked guilty now, the smile fading from his face. "No, I'm not Kevin," he admitted softly. Emma's stomach churned. She stood up abruptly, looking around for the exit. "I'm so sorry. This is embarrassing. I'll just go." Before he could stop her, she was already walking away. Her face burned, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to leave. She couldn't be here, not after this mistake. But as she rushed out of the restaurant, something strange happened. The man Liam Parker, as she would soon learn, watched her go, a strange mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. For some reason, he didn't want her to leave. He had been about to tell her she was at the wrong table, but he hadn't. And now, he found himself wondering if he'd ever see her again. Why did the thought of never seeing her again bother him so much? Emma rushed out of the restaurant, her cheeks still burning with embarrassment. She had no idea how she had ended up in this situation. She had promised her best friend, Jenny, that she would go on this blind date, but it was clear she had made a huge mistake. As she stepped out onto the bustling streets of New York, she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. The city, with its bright lights and cold air, seemed so far away from the quiet corner of her small apartment, where she had been dreaming of a different life. She had always known she didn't belong in places like this. Not with her second-hand dress and scuffed shoes. Not with her dreams of owning a small art studio while working as a waitress to make ends meet. She could feel the weight of her reality pressing down on her. She had no money, no backup plan, just her sketchbook and a few drawings of a future she wasn't sure she could ever achieve. As she walked down the street, trying to shake off the embarrassment, she couldn't help but replay the evening in her mind. She had walked into that restaurant so hopeful, so full of determination to meet Kevin. But instead, she had made a fool of herself by sitting at the wrong table. She couldn't believe how easily she had misread the situation. "Get it together, Emma," she whispered to herself as she adjusted her coat, her steps quickening. It was just a mistake. Nothing more. She had to move on. And yet, she couldn't stop thinking about him. Liam Parker, the man who wasn't Kevin. The man who had looked at her, not with judgment or disdain, but with curiosity. She had never met anyone like him before. His quiet, reserved demeanor had contrasted sharply with the bustling world around them. And even though she had made a fool of herself, there was something about the way he had smiled, something that made her think there was more to him than just a man in a suit. That night, as Emma lay in her small apartment, her thoughts continued to circle around the man she had mistakenly sat with. What was it about him that had intrigued her so much? She had barely known him, but somehow, she couldn't shake the feeling that their encounter was more than just a fluke. As the days passed, Emma tried to focus on her work. She had bills to pay and rent was due soon. The last thing she needed was to be distracted by a man she barely knew. But try as she might, she couldn't get Liam out of her mind. A week later, she found herself walking into a small cafe, hoping to get a moment of peace after a hectic shift at the diner. As she entered, her eyes scanned the room, and then, as if on cue, they landed on a familiar face. It was him, Liam Parker. He was sitting at the counter, his eyes focused on the screen of his laptop, completely unaware of her presence. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected to see him again, but here he was, sitting just a few feet away. For a moment, she considered turning around and leaving. She didn't want to make a scene or embarrass herself again. But before she could gather her thoughts, Liam looked up from his laptop, and their eyes met. He froze for a moment, clearly surprised to see her. "Emma," he said, his voice soft. "What a coincidence." Emma felt her stomach flip. She couldn't believe it. What was he doing here? Why was he looking at her like that? "I didn't expect to see you again," she said, her voice uncertain. "I didn't expect to be here either," he replied with a faint smile. There was something different about the way he looked at her now. No confusion, no hesitation, just something else. "Can I buy you a coffee?" he asked. Emma hesitated for a moment. She was still trying to figure out what was going on. Why was he being so kind? After everything that had happened, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Liam than just a successful businessman. "Sure," she said, sitting down beside him. The conversation flowed more easily this time. They talked about their lives, their struggles, their dreams. And as the hours passed, Emma found herself opening up to him in a way she hadn't with anyone else in a long time. There was something about Liam that made her feel safe, like she could trust him, even though they barely knew each other. But just as she was starting to let her guard down, Liam's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, his expression briefly hardening before he looked back at Emma. "Sorry, I have to take this," he said. Emma nodded, but a sense of unease crept over her. She wasn't sure what it was, but something about the way he had reacted to the phone call made her feel like there was more to this story than he was letting on. As he stood to take the call, Emma's mind raced. Who was Liam really? What was he hiding? And why did she feel like she was only just beginning to scratch the surface of a much deeper mystery? As Liam stepped away to take his call, Emma sat there, her fingers tracing the edge of her coffee cup, her mind racing. There was something unsettling about the way he had reacted to that phone call. It was almost like a switch had flipped inside of him. One moment, he had been kind and calm. The next, he was distant and cold, as if a wall had gone up between them. She couldn't help but wonder what was going on in his life. What kind of man was he really? And why had she felt so connected to him in such a short amount of time? Her thoughts were interrupted when Liam returned to the table. His expression had softened, but there was still something in his eyes that made Emma uneasy. "Sorry about that," he said, sitting back down. "Business." Emma nodded, though she couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something from her. She tried to push the thought aside, but it lingered, nagging at her. They continued talking, but the conversation felt different now. There was a tension in the air that hadn't been there before. Emma couldn't put her finger on it, but it was as if Liam was holding something back, something important. She could tell that whatever was going on in his life, it wasn't just business. It was personal, and it was complicated. But why was he sitting here with her, a woman he barely knew, sharing moments of his life when it seemed like he was trying so hard to keep everyone at arm's length? Emma was beginning to realize that there was much more to Liam than met the eye. He wasn't just a tech millionaire. He was a man with a story that he hadn't shared with anyone, a story that maybe, just maybe, she could be a part of. But that didn't mean she was ready to let her guard down just yet. As the evening wore on, Emma found herself looking at him differently. He wasn't the man she had mistakenly thought he was at their first meeting. He was more complicated, more layered. And yet, she still couldn't shake the feeling that there was something about him that she needed to understand. She had been drawn to him from the moment they had met, even though she had no idea who he really was. And now, with each passing moment, she found herself wanting to know more. Liam, on the other hand, seemed lost in his own thoughts, his eyes distant as he stared at the table. He was no longer the confident, self-assured man she had met in the restaurant. Instead, he looked vulnerable, almost as if he was grappling with something that he couldn't quite figure out. She could see it in the way he hesitated, the way he avoided her gaze when he spoke. There was a conflict within him, something that he was trying to hide. But Emma had a feeling that whatever it was, it had to do with his past. As the night drew to a close, Liam stood up, offering her a small, almost apologetic smile. "It was nice seeing you again, Emma," he said softly. "I'm sorry if I was distant. I'm just dealing with some things." Emma stood up too, her heart racing. She didn't know what she was feeling. Confusion, curiosity, maybe even a little bit of fear. She had always prided herself on being able to read people, but with Liam, it was like trying to read a book written in a foreign language. He was so guarded, so closed off, that it made her wonder what he was really hiding. "I understand," she said, trying to sound reassuring, though she wasn't sure if she believed it herself. "I'll see you around, I guess." As she walked out of the cafe, her mind was still spinning. She had so many questions, but no answers. What was Liam hiding? And why did it feel like they were only just beginning to scratch the surface of something much deeper? As she made her way back to her apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. There was something about Liam Parker that she couldn't walk away from. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, the way his vulnerability resonated with her own struggles. Or maybe it was just the feeling that there was more to this man than anyone had ever realized. Whatever it was, Emma knew one thing for sure: her life had just taken a turn she hadn't seen coming, and she couldn't turn back now. As the days passed, Emma couldn't stop thinking about Liam. She tried to focus on her job, tried to concentrate on her paintings, but her mind kept wandering back to him. There was something about him, something that made her heart race every time she thought about their brief encounters. Why couldn't she just let it go? He was a millionaire, and she was a waitress. He had a life that was completely different from hers. Yet, there was a connection between them that felt undeniable, a connection she couldn't explain. She tried to push him from her mind, but when she woke up the next morning, his face was still there, lingering in her thoughts. She couldn't get rid of the image of him sitting across from her in that cafe, his eyes so distant, yet soft at the same time. She knew she had to see him again. She had to understand what was really going on with him. A week later, fate seemed to have other plans. Emma was walking down the street after her shift, tired and worn out from another long day. She had just passed a cafe when she heard a voice call her name. "Emma!" She turned around, startled to see Liam standing there, holding a cup of coffee in his hand. He looked different, more relaxed, more approachable. It was almost like he wasn't the same person she had met a week ago. "Hey," he said with a warm smile. "I was hoping to run into you. Do you have a minute?" Emma nodded, surprised by his sudden appearance. "Of course," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "What's up?" Liam seemed hesitant for a moment, almost as if he was searching for the right words. He glanced at the coffee in his hand, then back at Emma. "I've been thinking about our last conversation," he said quietly. "I'm sorry if I came off as distant. I've been dealing with some things, and it's hard for me to talk about them." Emma looked at him, her curiosity piqued. She had sensed that there was more to him than what he had let on, and now he was finally opening up, even if just a little. "It's okay," she said, trying to reassure him. "I understand. You don't have to explain everything if you don't want to." Liam shook his head, clearly determined to be honest with her. "No, I want to. I feel like I owe you that much," he said, his voice low. He paused for a moment, collecting his thoughts, before continuing. "I've been keeping a secret for a long time, and it's something I haven't shared with anyone, not even my closest friends." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. She had no idea what he was about to say, but she could tell it was something serious. "What's going on, Liam?" she asked, her voice soft but insistent. Liam looked at her, his eyes searching hers, as if trying to decide whether or not to trust her. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "I'm sterile," he said quietly. "I can't have children." The words hit Emma like a wave. She didn't know what to say at first. She had never imagined something like this. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw the vulnerability, the pain behind them. That's really tough," Emma said softly. "But why are you telling me this?" Liam took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for the next part of his confession. "I'm telling you because I want you to know the truth. And because," he hesitated again, clearly struggling to find the right words, "because I think there's something between us. Something real. And I don't want you to think I'm just some guy who doesn't care." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected this. Never expected him to open up like this. But she also couldn't ignore the feelings that were starting to grow inside her. The feelings she had tried to deny ever since they first met. "I think there's something between us too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But this is a lot to take in. I don't know what to think." Liam nodded, looking both relieved and guilty at the same time. "I get it. I just wanted you to know that I'm not hiding from you. I don't want to keep any more secrets. And I want to figure this out with you, if you're willing to." Emma looked at him for a long moment, processing everything he had just said. There was still so much she didn't understand, but she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him. It wasn't just about the money, the success, or the lifestyle. There was something deeper, something more real than that. As she looked into his eyes, she saw a man who was trying to be honest, trying to be vulnerable in a way he had never been before. And for the first time, she felt like he was letting her in. "Okay," she said finally, her voice steady. "Let's figure this out together." Liam smiled, a real smile this time, the kind that made his eyes light up. "Thank you, Emma. I don't know what this means yet, but I'm glad you're willing to give it a chance." Emma smiled back, her heart lighter than it had been in days. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was on the right path. She had no idea where this journey would take her, but she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't walking it alone. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing day, Emma and Liam grew closer. They spent more time together, talking about everything and nothing at all. Their relationship, though still new, had a raw honesty to it that Emma had never experienced before. They talked about their pasts, their hopes for the future, and the unexpected connection they had formed despite the barriers of their different worlds. Liam had opened up to her about his inability to have children, and Emma had listened with compassion, never once making him feel like less of a person. It was a difficult truth, but it brought them closer in ways neither of them had expected. They had shared secrets, vulnerabilities, and dreams, and for the first time, Emma felt like she wasn't just the girl working a second job at a diner trying to make ends meet. She was someone important to someone else, someone who saw her for who she really was. But as much as their bond deepened, there was still a sense of hesitation in the air, an unspoken question that neither of them had yet addressed. Could they have a future together? Emma couldn't help but wonder if Liam still thought of her as just a temporary distraction, or if he saw her as someone worth building a life with. She tried not to let the doubt creep in, but sometimes, late at night, it was hard not to wonder if he would one day wake up and realize that he deserved someone with a life more aligned with his own. And Liam, despite his openness, still seemed haunted by his past, his sterility, and the secret he had kept buried for so long. He had told Emma that he wanted a chance with her, that he wanted to see where this could go, but did he truly believe in it? Or was he just trying to convince himself that love could still be a part of his life, despite the scars he carried? One evening, after another long, meaningful conversation, Liam took Emma's hand and led her to a quiet spot in Central Park, a place they had both come to love for its peaceful solitude in the middle of the city. The night was calm, the only sounds the rustling of leaves and the distant hum of the city. They stood together for a moment, just taking it all in, before Liam turned to her, his expression serious. "Emma," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper, "I need to tell you something. I've been holding back, and it's time I stop." Emma's heart skipped a beat as she looked up at him. His eyes were dark, filled with uncertainty and something else, something deeper. "What is it?" she asked, her voice gentle. Liam took a deep breath, clearly gathering the strength to say whatever it was he needed to say. "I told you about my past, about my inability to have children," he began. "But I never told you what that really meant. It's not just about not being able to have kids. It's about what that has done to me. How it's shaped my life. I spent so many years pushing people away, convincing myself that I didn't need anyone. But the truth is, Emma, I've been terrified. Terrified of letting anyone in. Terrified of being loved and then losing that love because of who I am." Emma's breath caught in her throat as she listened, her heart aching for him. She reached out, gently cupping his face in her hands. "Liam, you don't have to be afraid anymore," she said softly. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Liam closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. "But I've hurt people, Emma," he said quietly. "I've pushed them away, kept them at arm's length, and I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to let someone in. But with you, everything is different. You make me feel like I'm worth something again, like I can have a future." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she listened to his confession. She had always known that he was more than just the successful, powerful man everyone saw on the outside. She had always known that beneath the surface, there was a man who was hurting, a man who needed someone to help him heal. "Liam," she whispered, "you are worth more than you know. You don't have to hide anymore. I'm here for you." They stood there for a long time, the world around them fading into the background as they shared this quiet moment of understanding. Liam pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly, as if afraid to let her go. "Thank you," he murmured into her hair. "Thank you for being here, for not walking away." Emma smiled, feeling the warmth of his embrace and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against hers. She knew that this was the beginning of something real, something that would take time, but that was okay. They had already come so far, and as they stood there together, in the heart of the city, Emma knew one thing for certain. No matter what the future held, they would face it together. Weeks passed, and the bond between Emma and Liam grew even stronger. The walls they had once built around themselves began to crumble, piece by piece. They spent every free moment together, learning more about each other, sharing their fears, their dreams, and the parts of their lives they had never dared to reveal to anyone. Emma's life, which had once been filled with doubts and struggles, was slowly becoming brighter with Liam by her side. For the first time in years, she felt like she was truly seen, like someone understood her on a deeper level. And Liam, who had spent so much time hiding from his emotions, found solace in Emma's presence, in her unwavering support, and in the way she saw him, not as the successful millionaire, but as a man with flaws, with scars, and with a heart that had been bruised by years of loneliness. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was theirs. But despite all the progress they had made, there was still something they hadn't addressed: the future. Emma couldn't help but wonder how their relationship would work out in the long run. She loved Liam deeply. But could they truly build a life together when their worlds were so different? He was a tech millionaire, used to luxury and high society, while she was just a girl from a small town, trying to make ends meet. Could love really bridge that gap? One evening, as they sat together in Emma's small apartment, surrounded by sketches and unfinished paintings, Liam turned to her, his expression serious. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you," he said softly, his voice filled with hesitation. Emma looked up from the painting she had been working on, sensing the weight in his words. "What is it, Liam?" she asked, her heart starting to race. He took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to say what had been on his mind for weeks. "I know we've talked about a lot of things, and I know we've been through a lot together," he began. "But I've been thinking about our future, about what it means to be with someone like me. Someone who has responsibilities. A life that's already been set in stone in many ways. And I need to know that you're sure about this, about us." Emma felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her. She had never expected Liam to question their relationship, especially after everything they had been through. But his words made her realize how much he was still carrying, how much pressure he felt to live up to the expectations of his world. "I don't want you to feel like you have to take on my problems, Liam," he continued, his voice almost a whisper. "I don't want you to feel trapped in this life with me if you're not sure about it. I don't want to be the reason you give up your dreams or your freedom." Emma's heart ached as she listened to him. She had never seen Liam so vulnerable, so uncertain, but she also understood. He had spent so much of his life putting on a mask, hiding behind his success, and now, with her, he was finally allowing himself to feel, to be human, and to admit his fears. "Liam," she said softly, taking his hand in hers, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm with you. Not because of what you have, but because of who you are. You make me feel alive, and for the first time, I feel like I have a future with someone I can trust. I don't care about the money or the lifestyle. I care about us. And if that means facing the challenges ahead, then I'm ready." Liam looked at her, his eyes searching hers for any sign of hesitation. For a moment there was silence between them, as if both were weighing the significance of what they had just said. Finally, a small smile crept onto his face, the tension in his shoulders easing. "You really mean that?" he asked, his voice full of disbelief. Emma nodded, squeezing his hand. "Yes, I do. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Liam leaned in, kissing her gently on the forehead. "Thank you, Emma," he whispered. "Thank you for believing in us, even when I wasn't sure myself." They sat there together, the world outside their window seeming to fade away. In that moment, they both understood something important. Love wasn't about perfection or meeting expectations. It was about choosing each other, even when it wasn't easy, and standing together no matter what. As they sat in silence, Emma realized that she didn't need to have all the answers to know that this was right. The future was uncertain, and there would be challenges ahead, but with Liam by her side, she felt like anything was possible. And for the first time, she was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that their love was strong enough to handle it. As the days continued to pass, Emma and Liam found themselves navigating the ups and downs of their evolving relationship. The honesty between them had created a bond that neither had expected, but they both knew it was something special. Emma had never imagined that her life would take such an unexpected turn, but with Liam by her side, she was starting to believe in the possibility of a future that was no longer defined by struggle and doubt. Yet, even with all the progress they had made, there were still lingering questions that neither of them had fully addressed. Emma could feel the weight of the unspoken tension between them, the quiet question that lingered in the air. What comes next? After weeks of spending time together, growing closer, and sharing parts of themselves they had never shared with anyone else, Emma still found herself wondering if their connection was enough to withstand the differences in their lives. Liam's wealth, his world of luxury, and his status seemed so far removed from her reality. She was a waitress, an artist with big dreams but little means, trying to make it in a city that often felt indifferent to people like her. Could their love really bridge that gap? And could she live a life that was so different from everything she had ever known? One evening, after a long day at work, Emma was sitting alone in her apartment, working on a new painting, when her phone buzzed with a message from Liam. He had invited her to dinner at a new restaurant he wanted to try. The idea of spending a quiet evening together was enough to lift her spirits, and she eagerly accepted. As she got ready, she couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. Despite everything they had been through, she still felt a flutter of excitement every time she saw him, a rush of feelings that made her heart race. She hadn't expected this feeling of love, of being wanted, of belonging. When she arrived at the restaurant, Liam was already waiting for her, sitting at a table near the window. He looked more relaxed than usual, his usual business attire replaced by a more casual look. As soon as he saw her, his face lit up, and Emma's heart melted. He stood up to greet her, taking her hand in his as she sat down. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice warm and genuine. Emma smiled, feeling a blush creep up her cheeks. "Thank you. You look great too." They spent the evening talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. It was the kind of evening that Emma had always dreamed of, simple, yet perfect in its own way. As they finished their meal, Liam's demeanor shifted slightly, and Emma could sense that he was about to say something important. He reached across the table, taking her hand gently in his. "Emma," he began, his voice serious. "I know we've been talking a lot about our future, and I just want to be honest with you. I know things between us haven't always been easy, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I want a future with you, and I want to be with you, no matter what." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected to hear those words from him, especially not in such a straightforward way. She had always wondered if Liam truly believed in their relationship, or if he was just going along with it because it was convenient. But now, hearing him speak from the heart, she realized that he truly meant it. "Liam," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly with emotion, "I want that too. I want to be with you. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I want to face it with you by my side." A smile spread across Liam's face as he squeezed her hand. "Thank you, Emma," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "You have no idea how much that means to me." They sat there for a few more moments, just holding hands and letting the reality of what they had just shared sink in. For the first time, Emma felt a sense of peace, a feeling that, no matter what came next, they would face it together. She didn't know what the future would bring, but she knew that Liam was someone she wanted by her side through it all. As they left the restaurant and walked out into the cool evening air, Emma realized that she had stopped worrying about the things that once seemed so important. The differences in their lives, the obstacles they would face, they didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the connection they had, the love that was slowly but surely growing between them. And for the first time in a long while, Emma felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. With Liam, she was starting to believe that anything was possible. As weeks passed, Emma and Liam's connection grew even deeper. The early hesitations and uncertainties had faded, replaced by a sense of certainty neither of them had expected. They had built something real, something that felt both fragile and strong at the same time. Emma, who had once been afraid of love and commitment, now found herself looking forward to every moment with Liam. He was no longer just the tech millionaire she had once mistakenly thought was out of her league. He was Liam, the man who had shared his fears, his vulnerabilities, and his dreams with her. Together, they were learning to navigate a world that had seemed so different for both of them. As much as their relationship felt perfect in the moments they shared, Emma couldn't help but notice that Liam still seemed to carry a weight on his shoulders. His past, his inability to have children, and the pressures of his world had created barriers he wasn't yet ready to let down completely. Despite his words of assurance, she could tell he still doubted his worthiness of love. One night, after a quiet dinner at his penthouse, they stood together on the balcony overlooking the city. The lights of New York shimmered below, casting long shadows over the streets. Emma could feel the cool breeze against her skin, the peace of the moment settling between them. But she could also feel the tension in Liam's posture, the way his gaze seemed distant as he looked out over the skyline. "What's on your mind?" she asked gently, stepping closer to him, her hand resting on his arm. Liam took a deep breath, his fingers gripping the railing as if he needed something solid to hold on to. "I've been thinking a lot about us," he said quietly, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "About everything. You've given me more than I ever thought possible. But I can't shake this feeling that I'm not enough for you, that you deserve more than me. That my past, my inability to have children, is something that will always stand between us." Emma's heart ached as she listened to him. She knew he struggled with his sense of worth, but hearing him say it out loud made her realize how much he had yet to accept about himself. "Liam, listen to me," she said softly, taking his hand in hers. "You are enough. You are more than enough. You don't need to be perfect, and you don't need to have everything figured out for us to make this work. I love you for who you are, not for what you can give me or what you think you're lacking. I love you because you're real, because you're kind, and because you've allowed yourself to trust me when it would have been easier to shut me out." Liam looked at her, his eyes searching hers as if trying to find the truth in her words. "But what about the future? What about everything we've talked about? I don't want you to wake up one day and realize you made a mistake," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma smiled softly, stepping closer to him. She lifted her hand to his cheek, her touch gentle but firm. "The future isn't something we can predict, Liam," she said, her voice steady. "But I know one thing for sure, we face it together. We'll figure it out as we go. It won't always be easy, and there will be challenges, but we'll face them side by side." Liam's eyes softened, a trace of hope flickering in his gaze. He took a step closer to her, his hand resting on her waist as he pulled her into a gentle embrace. "I'm scared, Emma," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm scared that one day I won't be able to be the man you need." Emma wrapped her arms around him, holding him close, as if trying to reassure him with her touch. "You already are," she whispered. "You're already everything I need." They stood there for a long moment, the sounds of the city below fading into the background as they shared a quiet, intimate connection. Emma knew that there were still questions to be answered, obstacles to overcome, but in that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was that they had each other, and that was enough. As the days went on, Emma and Liam continued to learn from each other, their love growing stronger with every passing challenge. Liam slowly began to open up more, letting go of the fears and doubts that had held him back for so long. Emma, too, found herself embracing the future with a newfound sense of hope. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but she no longer feared it. With Liam by her side, she knew they could face whatever came next. And that was all she needed to know. Months passed, and the life that Emma and Liam had begun to build together felt more like a dream than reality. They had faced their fair share of challenges, and though the path hadn't always been smooth, they had walked it together, hand in hand. Their bond had only deepened, as they had learned to support each other in ways neither had imagined. Liam had begun to let go of his fears, his insecurities, and while he still had moments of doubt, he now trusted Emma with everything he had once kept buried deep inside. Emma, too, had come a long way. She had grown into the woman she was always meant to be: confident, independent, but also deeply in love with Liam. As the two of them navigated their lives side by side, Emma no longer felt like she was simply waiting for something better to come along. She had found it in the most unexpected way. One evening, as the sun set over the New York skyline, casting a warm golden glow over their apartment, Liam surprised Emma with a date that was more than just a night out. He had planned an entire evening dinner at a quaint restaurant by the water, followed by a quiet walk along the pier. As they strolled hand in hand, the sound of the waves crashing against the shore, Liam suddenly stopped, turning to her with a soft but serious look in his eyes. "Emma," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "I've been thinking about everything we've been through, about everything we've shared, and I want you to know that I'm more certain of this than I've ever been before." Emma's heart began to race. She could feel the weight of the moment, the anticipation building between them. She had no idea what he was about to say, but she knew it was something important. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam took a deep breath, his hand gently cupping her face. "I mean that I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Emma. I want to build a future with you. I want to wake up every morning knowing that you're beside me, that we're facing this life together, no matter what it brings." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. In that moment, everything else faded away: the noise of the world, the worries that had once clouded her mind. All that mattered was Liam, standing in front of her, offering her his heart. "Liam, she started, but the words caught in her throat. She didn't need to say anything more. The look in his eyes said it all. Slowly, Liam reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a ring, sparkling in the dim light. "Emma, will you marry me?" he asked, his voice full of hope and love. Emma's heart swelled with emotion, tears filling her eyes. She had never imagined this moment, not in a million years. It felt surreal, but at the same time, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Yes," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "Yes, I will." Liam smiled, the weight of the world seeming to lift off his shoulders as he slid the ring onto her finger. "You have no idea how much this means to me," he whispered. "I can't wait to spend forever with you." They stood there for a moment, the world around them disappearing as they shared a quiet, intimate kiss. In that kiss, Emma felt everything they had been through, everything they had fought for, all coming together in this beautiful, perfect moment. They didn't know what the future would hold, but in that moment, they knew that they had each other, and that was enough. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Emma and Liam's love only grew stronger. They planned their wedding, surrounded by family and friends who had supported them through their journey. Their love story, once filled with uncertainty, had become a testament to the power of trust, vulnerability, and unconditional love. On their wedding day, Emma walked down the aisle, her heart full of joy, knowing that she was marrying the man she loved, the man who had helped her find herself, the man who had shown her what true love really was. And as they exchanged vows, standing together in front of the people who mattered most, Emma realized that everything they had been through had led them to this moment. They had fought for each other, they had grown together, and now they were ready to begin the rest of their lives as one. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Emma knew that this was just the beginning. They had a lifetime ahead of them, filled with endless possibilities, and she couldn't wait to see where their love would take them next. Their journey had only just begun, but with each other by their side, they knew they could face whatever came their way. Together, they were unstoppable. This is a heartwarming and emotional love story that follows the journey of a woman and a millionaire who find each other against all odds. In this captivating tale, we explore the depths of vulnerability, trust, and overcoming obstacles as the two characters navigate their differences and insecurities. As their relationship grows, they discover that love is about more than just material wealth. It's about connection, honesty, and choosing each other, even when life gets complicated. This is one of the most touching millionaire stories you will ever hear, as it showcases how two people from completely different worlds can find a future together despite their pasts. From mistaken identities to overcoming personal fears, the story unfolds with surprising twists that will keep you hooked from start to finish. As they work through their insecurities and challenges, they both learn the importance of trusting in each other and the power of love. This is one of the many powerful millionaire stories that proves love is more than just a fairy tale. It's about real people, real emotions, and the courage to build a life together. If you've been looking for millionaire stories that go beyond the glamour and wealth, this tale is for you. It shows that no matter how rich or successful someone may be, it's their heart and their willingness to open up that truly defines who they are. Join Emma and Liam on their emotional journey as they discover that true happiness isn't found in material things, but in the love they share. This is another one of those unforgettable millionaire stories that leave a lasting impact, reminding us all of the power of love and the beauty of vulnerability.